There are moments in life when it feels like everything is falling apart. You know the feeling, the weight of failure, the crushing reality of everything slipping through your fingers, and the overwhelming sense that no matter how hard you try, you're never going to make it. I've been there. And so have many others. But what if I told you that some of the most powerful stories come from the very depths of despair? That sometimes, hitting rock bottom can be the beginning of an extraordinary journey? This is the story of a man named Jake. His journey is one of struggle, hardship, and ultimately, triumph. But it all started with failure so deep and so personal that it seemed like there was no way out. Jake's story isn't just about success, it's about resilience, the power of second chances, and the reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is always a way to rise. Jake wasn't always the person he would later become. Growing up in a small town in Texas, he had dreams like anyone else. He wasn't born into wealth, but his family had what they needed to get by. He excelled in school and had big plans for the future. After graduating, he moved to a larger city, hoping to make a name for himself. He had a vision. He wanted to build a successful business, make a difference in the world, and live the American dream. At first, things seemed to be going well. Jake landed a decent job in marketing and started making connections. He was driven, ambitious, and ready to conquer the world. But life, as it often does, had different plans. A few years into his new life, Jake found himself drowning in debt. The business he had tried to start had failed, his credit cards were maxed out, and his job, while steady, didn't pay nearly enough to get ahead. To make matters worse, he went through a difficult breakup. His personal life fell apart, and it felt like everything was slipping away. There were days when he would wake up, not knowing how he would make it through the day. He struggled with feelings of inadequacy and doubt, unable to see how he could ever pull himself out of the hole he had dug. Jake tried to push through. He worked hard, took on extra jobs, and did everything he could to keep his head above water. But nothing seemed to work. Every step forward felt like 2 steps back. He watched as his friends and peers seemed to move ahead, while he was stuck in the same place, just trying to stay afloat. One night, after yet another exhausting day of struggling, Jake sat in his small apartment, staring at his phone. He scrolled through social media, watching people post about their accomplishments, their vacations, and their successes. It was a painful reminder of how far behind he felt. In that moment, Jake hit rock bottom. He felt like a failure. He didn't know how to move forward, and he didn't know who to turn to. It felt like everything he had worked for was slipping through his fingers. But then, something inside of him clicked. Jake didn't know it at the time, but that moment of despair would be the turning point in his life. It wasn't the end, it was the beginning of something new. He knew that if he was ever going to change his life, he would have to start with himself. He couldn't keep looking for external fixes or blaming circumstances. He had to take control, even if he didn't know exactly how. Jake started small. He began by setting a single goal: to get out of debt. It seemed like a monumental task, but it was something he could work towards every day. He began tracking his spending, cutting back on unnecessary expenses, and putting any extra money toward paying off his debt. Slowly but surely, he started to make progress. It wasn't easy. There were days when he felt like giving up, but he kept pushing through. In the process, Jake began to rediscover his drive. He realized that the key to turning his life around wasn't just about fixing his financial situation, it was about changing his mindset. He started reading books on personal development, listening to motivational podcasts, and surrounding himself with people who were positive influences. He didn't want to be the person he used to be. The person who gave up when things got tough. He wanted to be someone who could overcome obstacles and create a better future. Months passed, and Jake's financial situation began to improve. He paid off his credit card debt, started saving, and even found a new job that offered more opportunities for growth. But the real transformation wasn't in his bank account, it was in his mindset. He started believing in himself again. He started seeing possibilities where he had once seen only dead ends. He realized that the setbacks and failures he had experienced were not permanent, they were just stepping stones on his path to success. But just when things were starting to look up, Jake faced another setback. A business opportunity he had been pursuing fell through, and he found himself back at square one. This time, though, something was different. He didn't panic. He didn't fall into despair. Instead, he took a step back, reassessed his situation, and used it as an opportunity to learn. Jake began focusing on building skills that would set him up for long-term success. He took courses on digital marketing, freelanced in his spare time, and connected with people who could help him grow. He didn't wait for success to come to him, he went out and built it himself, one step at a time. It wasn't an easy journey. There were nights when he doubted himself and wanted to quit. But the difference was that now, he had a plan. He had a vision. He knew that if he kept working hard and pushing forward, success would come. And sure enough, it did. A few years later, Jake found himself running a successful online business. He had gone from being deeply in debt and struggling to keep his head above water to owning a business that generated 6 figures annually. His journey wasn't a straight line, it was full of twists and turns, setbacks, and successes. But it was his determination, resilience, and ability to learn from failure that brought him to where he was. Looking back, Jake now sees that the lowest point in his life was actually the best thing that could have happened to him. It forced him to reevaluate his priorities, his goals, and his mindset. It gave him the drive to change and the strength to keep going, even when things seemed impossible. He learned that failure wasn't something to fear, it was something to learn from. And he learned that the road to success isn't always a straight path, but one that requires perseverance, grit, and the willingness to keep going, even when you feel like you've hit rock bottom. Jake's story is a reminder that no matter how low you fall, you always have the power to rise. It's about turning setbacks into comebacks, learning from your mistakes, and never giving up. His journey shows that no matter where you start, your story can end in triumph. All it takes is the courage to keep moving forward, one step at a time. So, if you're struggling right now, if you feel like you're at rock bottom, remember this, your story isn't over. The best chapters are still ahead of you. You have the strength to rise, just like Jake did. And one day, you'll look back and see that the very things that tried to break you were the things that made you stronger. You just have to keep going.